Hello everybody, my name is Nikki and I am your co-DL this week along with Madison for chapter 12 and 13 of Jeremy Harmer's book, so Planning and Teaching Language Instruction. A good teacher will be capable of sticking to the timings on their lesson plan. A great one will be adept at modifying it to meet the needs of the learners on the day. Lizette Allen. So this chapter focuses a lot on planning, and it's always good to have a plan in place, but it's better to understand that plans don't always go according to plan. So what we think the students might respond to very well, they might respond to very poorly. So it's always better to be able to improvise and think on your feet the day of the lesson, no matter how much thought and planning went into it, so that the students are able to get something out of it that they need. So this chapter also focused a lot on teachers that are in training that need to be observed for jobs or interviews or whatever reason. So formal lesson plan requirements for single observed lessons include listing the activities and procedures and how much time they will take to complete, the classroom materials that you will be using, so technology, textbooks, and different classroom interactions, so where the students are grouped, who they're with, where they are in the classroom. We also want to say what our aims are. This is arguably the most important part of a lesson plan. It is what we hope the students will be able to do when we are done with the lesson. So an example of an aim would be the student will be able to talk about recent experiences using the present perfect. And we have SMART aims, which are aims that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. So ideally all aims should include these elements. We want to predict potential pitfalls and suggest ways of dealing with them. So any problems we think might arise, we want to find solutions to them in our pre-planning stages to make sure that if they do arise, we'll be prepared. We want to include alternative activities for said problems. And we want to include additional activities in case some students finish early and then they're left with nothing to do because our lesson plan wasn't timed as effectively as it could have been. Now, for sequence of lesson plans, a sequence of lessons plan would be for when you need to plan lessons a week or a month in advance for a syllabus or a curriculum, for an entire semester. So approaches to a sequence of lesson plans include thematic planning. So focus on a thematic content in each individual lesson. Themes should be carried out for more than one lesson. The book gave a great example using photography for how one day in class, students study a picture and discuss it. Another day in class, they use their iPhones to take pictures. So each day in class had a different lesson about photography using different skills for writing or reading or oral speaking. So that is thematic planning. We have language planning for when you propose a sensible progression of elements like grammar, lexis, and function. You build opportunities for recycling or remembering language. This chapter also stressed how language needs to be repeated and reintroduced every so often so that it is not forgotten. We also have a balance of activities. So thread different skills through activities so that no one skill, such as writing, gets forgotten or predominates another. So we don't want reading to overshadow writing, so on and so forth. Every skill needs to be actively used in the different activities that we use for our lessons. We also have projects for lesson plans, so we want to encourage our students to create projects that will involve reading, discussion, writing with new language input, and oral presentation. Now, language study and lesson sequences. This is from chapter 13, and we have different approaches for how to study language. So we have the deductive approach, which you can use explain and practice approach. So you explain and demonstrate both meaning and language construction, then have students practice it through whatever means necessary, activities, and repeat the new language. We can repeat it in a choral form, or they can repeat it individually. mumbling under their breath, as long as they're repeating the new language. We'll also have an inductive approach. Now, these are discovery activities, so the students see examples of language and try to work out how it is put together. This is arguably a more effective approach because they have to cognitively think a little more and find things out on their own rather than being told an explanation. So we have the research and practice approach. So students do language research on their own. Maybe they look in a dictionary or they use a search engine to find out what words are, what they aren't. And this is also a way that students may remember things more easily because they are the ones actively searching for the answers. And we also have opportunistic teaching, so studying language when it comes up. Maybe you didn't plan to talk about something that day, maybe it has nothing to do with what you're teaching them, but when students ask a question about word or anything they can think of, it's always beneficial to answer their questions, and they're more likely to remember this and use it moving forward because they are seeking it out themselves without being told to. Maybe they heard something in the hallway at school or in real life in town and they want to know what it means. So this is a part of not being so rigid in the lesson plan that you've prepared and allowing some flexibility for different conversations to arise and different learning opportunities. So we also would like to include some activities. They must pass the TITO test, which is the time in and time out. So the amount that it takes to explain and demonstrate and set up an activity, is it worth what the students will get out of it? Because if not, you're wasting valuable class time where you could be learning something more beneficial for them. And we must evaluate the success of an activity. So how did the students like it? Is it something that we'd want to use again? And was it effective or not? So you can evaluate that by asking the students questions and observing the lesson on your own. So that was chapters 12 and 13 from Jeremy Harmer's book.